Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Mizuki Arts. Today we are going to be talking about something that has been on my brain for quite some time, and that is the importance of making bad art, some ways to allow yourself to make bad art, allow yourself to share bad art, that sort of thing, if that makes sense. I'll try to tie that back into like AI in our current day and age, and how keeping art human and allowing art to be imperfect is going to be pretty important in that regard. And also I'll try to connect that to how getting rid of that perfectionist mindset that so many artists struggle from can actually like help you succeed and help you keep sharing your work and making projects. Real quick before I get into the video, I would like to say be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be doing more discussion videos like this in the future because I enjoy doing these types of content. I think they're fun, and I think you guys enjoy them too. They're definitely some of my more interactive videos, I think. To start us off, I wanted to talk about one of the best tips that I got going into art school, and that was to sort of not say much during your portion of a critique during classes. Like after a project is finished, all students in a college art class will bring their pieces like to an easel or to a wall or whatever and put them all up together and talk about them as a class, and the professor will often lead like students from piece to piece and have something to say, and then classmates will say something, and the student or artist in question will answer questions about their work and everything. And one of the best tips I got before my first class was to sort of let others lead the discussion in this case. In other words, not to start off with a big long ramble about what my piece meant or what I intended or whether or not I think it was good, and most importantly, not to lead off with how insecure I was about it. This is not something that I was perfect at following through with. There are a lot of times where I just couldn't hold back and I'd be like, oh, I hate how this turned out, I really struggled, but you know, I learned a lot, that sort of thing. So there definitely were times that I couldn't follow this tip, but overall it was really, really helpful for me to gain as many new perspectives about my work as possible. And the reason I think this relates to today's discussion is how easy it is to, first off, not share your work at all if you feel like a piece isn't good when you're done with it, but also to just dog on your own art. Like, it's so easy to like look at your own work and post it and say how awful you think it looks. And sometimes I'm still guilty of this, but it's something I'm working on again because I feel like it's unprofessional. Every once in a while when I post, I'll joke like, oh, haha, don't just ignore the fact that this character's hand is too small, or the arm looks broken, or whatever. But all in all, it is better to set a positive tone for your work and a positive tone for your whole page and everything. And that will also impact you mentally. Like, if you say more positive things about your artwork, not only is it more professional, but also you will carry that energy with you, if that makes sense. You will find that you like your art better, and that you're more forgiving of yourself, and that maybe you make more art as a result because you're not spending that time like feeling bad about yourself or going back and reworking things or staring at a piece until you hate it, which is something that I am so guilty of, but I found that in recent months I'm less guilty of it. Like, I feel like I used to be someone that like overworked pieces to the point that they looked worse, which obviously is not helpful, and in the end I would be stuck with a product that I didn't like a final piece that I didn't like. And I could have maybe started over if I'd caught myself much earlier. Obviously, my experience with perfectionism and art relates to my goal and dream of doing this professionally, but even as a hobbyist, I think it's important to overcome perfectionism. Your art is going to be imperfect because it's a reflection of an imperfect person. That's just the way it is to be human. So that's how your artwork is going to be, and that's how my artwork is going to be, and every artist since the dawn of time. Although, it's hard to look at like, some of the masters and be like, oh, your art's imperfect, but it's just the truth. Like, it's the way it is. Everyone has pieces that don't turn out as well as others. And that's just the way it is when you have other things that could be on your mind, distractions and all sorts of things that you don't physically see when you're just like looking at the final product. And especially in the age of AI, it's important to kind of forgive yourself for that, because otherwise you might end up not making art at all. I actually really worry about young artists right now, where, I think back to my days of like sketching scrappy triangle head anime girls on lined notebook paper, and I'm like, are young artists going to be doing that? Like, are they going to be like spending hours and hours doing that every day, or are they going to look at ChatGPT and generate an AI image? It's so hard now, I think, or it's always been hard, really. Like, it's always been hard to start out as a beginner at anything, much less art, where you can see like thousands and thousands and thousands of images on Google or whatever of very polished and professional work, and wonder how you're going to get to that point or that level. But especially now, I feel like that temptation to just generate an image, even though it doesn't give the same like mental satisfaction, like you don't get the like, look, I made this sort of feeling, you do get a finished image. So it's like, I worry about younger artists dealing with that. So you have to be able to forgive your art for having like, same face syndrome. Like, that's a made up problem. I'm sorry. That's only a problem if you are working in a studio that needs the villain to look like a certain way and the hero to look like a certain way in your story. Like, otherwise, that is a made up problem. Your faces can look however you want them to look. Off-model characters is another one. Like, people look different from different angles. They look different day to day. Like, draw your characters and just accept that your art's going to look different every single time you sit down with your pencil or pen, because that's just the way it is. You can obviously learn and get better with faces. I'm trying every day to get better at drawing up my characters and making them look more consistent. But I'm also accepting that sometimes my characters are going to look a little different, and it's just better to allow myself to finish a sketch or a piece of my characters that looks maybe a little off or a little different, than to not have finished art of my characters at all, if that makes sense. Another sort of made-up problem with perfectionism that comes to mind is inconsistent art style. I feel like this is not an issue at all, but I don't know. I'm not someone who has like a very an art style that fluctuates too much. But the reality of it is, I feel like that reflects a person that's changing and growing a lot and probably improving very, very quickly. So it's like, that's another like made up problem. That's like a very social media kind of problem. Like, humans love to create problems. Like, that's what we do. We look at something and we're like, oh, it's not the way I imagined it, so it's a problem. But the reality of it is, like, no one's going to criticize you for any of these problems as much as you can criticize yourself. Obviously, there are losers on the internet who will go into like comments if you post your work online and maybe say something not so nice. But the reality of it is, imagine how pathetic it is to have the compulsion or impulse to do that, to like go into someone's comments and say something rude about their art. Like, that's nasty. That's pathetic. That's unemployed behavior. Most people are not going to care if your art looks a little different or a little imperfect today versus any other day, like, it doesn't matter. You can share the artwork that you spent hours on, regardless of whether it turned out the way that it looked in your head, or regardless of if it's in a different style or medium, anyone with a life isn't going to care about the tiny little mistake that you see. Obviously, like, self-critique is important, but not so important that you shouldn't be making art, if that makes sense. And it took me a long time to learn that, like a long time. And for me, that like became most clear during college again, because during high school I made my first like attempt at a picture book, right? Like I sat down and I wrote this little poem for a story called Tea Party Under the Stars. And it's about like a little doll that wants to have a tea party in the middle of the night. So she gets out all her like little desserts and china and table and chairs and everything and sets it out in a meadow in the middle of the night. And then she realizes, well, it's the middle of the night. I didn't really invite anyone. Why did I do this? Maybe someone will show up. And she sits and waits and waits and waits. And then all these animals that are active during the night show up. And she ends up having this really great time because she was bold enough to like do the thing that she wanted to do, even if the timing was inconvenient for others and everything. And she ended up making new friends. I thought it was a really cute story. I worked super hard on the illustrations. I made 24 pages in total. But when it came time to actually like put the picture book together, I had learned enough that all of my mistakes like were pretty clear to me. So I never ended up like finishing or publishing the picture book anywhere. I just sort of slapped the text on there because the composition was really the part that suffered most with those pages. Like I didn't consider the text at all. And so the completion of my first picture book was put off until college, when I got into an advanced drawing class. It was drawing 3. And my professor let me create a picture book in that class, and that's when I created Petunia's Butterfly Parade. And during this project, I took a lot of time to consider the text and everything, but I still had things that were not perfect about the illustrations. Some of the spreads in the book are definitely like really, really strong, and then some of them are not as strong because maybe the faces don't look as on model as some of the others. Or maybe like the composition could use a little work. I definitely had one spread where I look back at it and I'm like, it's a little empty. It could use a little more going on maybe, but like the reality of it is, if I had let those things stop me, I wouldn't have a picture book at all. I had a deadline. I had to finish my picture book by a certain date, and if I didn't finish it by then, I didn't have a picture book. So I had to let my perfectionism go, and I had to just finish the project and make it something I could be proud of, obviously, but I had to not obsess over everything. Otherwise, it wasn't going to end up getting done, and I bet there are a lot of other people who can relate to that. You just have to set like a date for yourself for the completion of a certain project, and keep yourself moving, like keep going. Because otherwise your art will never get the chance to even exist, like at all. So I'm not trying to be like corny or anything, but I feel like this video is kind of leaning in that direction, so forgive me. But please be kind to yourself and know that your art matters enough to exist imperfectly, like even with the flaws and everything. Even things that you might cringe, like looking back on. Like I definitely look back at some of those spreads in my first picture book and I'm like, I'm glad it exists, I am, but I wish I could fix that, Even the things that you wish, you'll wish you could fix, like later on. It's worth having your project exist and have mistakes in it than to not exist at all. Like for me personally, the difference between like letting my perfectionism rule over me and letting it go and just finishing as best as I possibly could, finishing with as strong of a project as I could, was the difference between me being an artist with no published works and me being a artist with a self-published finished picture book that I'm so proud of. That's something that no amount of perfectionism ever would have given me. I had to get over that. So definitely ask yourself what perfectionism actually is protecting you from, if anything at all. I hope you guys found this video helpful. It definitely was a different sort of tone for my channel. Real quick before I end the video, I want to give a shout out to my Ko-fi supporters. So thank you so much to Ashley, Savvy, Tiffany, and Lilycorn. Your guys' support means the world to me, and it allows me to keep making videos just like this one. If you would like to join my Ko-fi page, there will be a link in the description box down below where you can get all these benefits and so much more. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what you thought about this video and how you deal with perfectionism in your art. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!